All right, hello everybody. This is Armağan from Coyotiv School of Software Engineering. I hope you are doing fine. I hope you are doing okay in this crazy time of the pandemic. I know it's very difficult to even breathe in these circumstances, and I hope you are all safe, you and your loved ones. This is another hello, Steve. This is another episode in our public lecture series with Coyotiv School of Software Engineering. I'm Armağan Amcalar. I head Coyotiv. I'm the main instructor, the lead instructor at Coyotiv School of Software Engineering. And a couple of weeks ago, we decided to start these public lectures because we wanted to give everybody a sense of what it feels like to be a student at Coyotiv School of Software Engineering and the topics that we talk about and hey, welcome, and what we go over and what you should expect to learn by the time you graduate. Of course, we don't have enough time to cover all the materials we do in Coyotiv School of Software Engineering. I think we have about 120 hours of lectures in total, so that's a hefty curriculum. And we just launched our self-paced curriculum, which you can take for 12 months. You can go over our entire curriculum in whatever speed you like, whenever you like. And for the details, you can hit school.coyotiv.com, and that will take you to our learning platform where you can sign up for the self-paced curriculum, which gives you exactly all the lectures that we do at Coyotiv, and you are free to consume them on your own pace whenever you want. All right, we started with Object-Oriented Programming 1, where we talked about objects and their relationships. And I did an example of a taxi booking application, something like an Uber clone. And we had a user and a driver and a taxi. And we kind of gave you a sense of what it means when we talk about object-oriented programming and how you should be constructing your objects and their relationships and how you should be using them. Now, yeah, I don't have tea this time, unfortunately, but I hope to compensate soon. So today we're going to talk about object-oriented programming one level deeper. Now, the first lecture was about objects and their relationships. This is about information, knowledge. Knowledge is power. Information is value. And today we're going to talk about information hiding and how you should be treating those properties of the objects that you construct, and how you should be protecting your application from, or your modules, your classes, from unintended use. And I'm going to talk more about what I mean by that in a second. But before we start, now, this will be a lot of hands-on code, and I'm going to be using Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to be using Node.js. If you want to follow along, anything above Node.js 12 would work. I think the minimum that what I'm going to show you will work today is Node.js version 12. So anything above that should work. Modern browsers should also work. Whatever I'm going to show you today will have support for older browsers if you compile or transpile your code with tools like Babel. But out of the box, it will be supported only in recent browsers and Node.js version 12 and up. And this week, we had the news of version 15. So, it's rapidly evolving. And hopefully in the future, this will be our day-to-day reality. I'm going to talk about information hiding. I'm going to talk about objects, classes, and how you should treat their information. Which parts should be private, which parts should be public, accessible, and what this actually means for you. And I'm going to demonstrate that with an example of a bank account. Today we're going to talk about hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about a bank account and how we should be programming a class of a bank account. It's going to be very preliminary. It's going to be very basic, so no worries. You don't have to cover and shiver at the sound of a bank account. It's not an enterprise software. We're not going to talk about very advanced patterns. We're just covering the basics of object-oriented programming, but I hope this will be a real enough example for you to illustrate the points that I will have for today. All right, if you'd like to follow along again, feel free to do so. Of course, the video will be recorded, so you can also watch it afterwards and pause it and recreate the steps and fully understand the content that I'm trying to talk about today. I hope you will like it. All right, now, how should we start? Are you ready? We're about 45-50 minutes. So I will get to programming. The previous lecture was more theoretical. This will be more hands-on, and I'm going to talk about these concepts as I'm showcasing them to you. And I'm going to start with a blank index.js page, index.js file. There won't be anything in the project, which means you can adapt this to whatever project that you're running. We don't make judgments about linters. We don't make judgments about any backend framework, any front-end framework. This is pure object-oriented programming with JavaScript, and you can adapt this to any environment that you're running JavaScript in. So I hope it will be applicable to all of your projects when you choose to build it with object-oriented programming in mind. All right, this is really exciting. Let's see. Let's see how we start. So let me switch to my screen. Yeah, this looks good. So what we have here is an empty Visual Studio Code window. I'm in my public lectures folder. If you didn't notice, we published it on GitHub, and I'm going to ask Tamay to send the link to the chat. I hope he will be able to do that. Otherwise, Dennis can do. We have open sourced, obviously, the examples that we do in these public lecture series, and the repository is available under our GitHub profile, github.com/coyotiv/public lectures, I guess. Hello, Ilkay. Hi, how are you? And you're gonna see that we'll be basically putting all the examples there. Oh, and before we start, this is another Thursday. We're doing this for the second time. The first one was 2 weeks ago. But starting today, we'll be holding our public lectures every Thursday for an hour. So make sure to subscribe to Coyotiv's channel, hit the bell so that you are notified whenever we go live or whenever we publish a new video, because we will be live every Thursday at 6 p.m. Yes, Dennis, I wanted you to maybe talk to Tamay and then get the link and post the link of our GitHub profile and then this repository. We're going to be live every Thursday at 6 p.m. Berlin time. That might obviously change based on your time zone for your local time. And we're going to be talking about topics like Git and Docker and testing and so on and so forth. This is a we want to make this as comprehensive as possible. That's why we wanted to be live with you every week, and this is basically the start of those weeks. So from now on, expect a new video every Thursday evening, a live broadcast where we go over the concepts of programming altogether. All right, so the first part was object-oriented programming with JavaScript, very simple. Taxi, customer, and the customer books a taxi from Kreuzberg to Mitte, and basically we drive the customer to their destination. Today, again, we're going to talk about an example from scratch. I believe that will make it more digestible, the information that I'm trying to illustrate, the points that I'm trying to illustrate. So today we're going to talk about a bank account. And what would you do with a bank account? Now, obviously, we would have some money in that account, and we would have a balance, right? And we would be able to adjust our balance by adding money, by removing money. And usually there is a, hello, Haluk. Usually there's a currency, like dollars. A bank account is of a special currency, like a specific currency. So how do we show this in software? How do we program this? Let's see. Let's start with a class bank account. And what we would do would be const account equals new bank account. I'm instantiating that. I have a class, currently it's empty. I'm instantiating that class, and now I have an account, a bank account. And let's log the account right now. There's nothing in it. And I'm using a tool, I will be using a tool called Nodemon, which runs the code every time I hit save. So here we see that basically this is an empty object. A bank account is an empty object. And whenever I hit save, it's gonna rerun this. And let's say account details here, for example. So account details, bank account is what you see there. Now, I want this bank account to have money in it. A bank account is useless without money, right? So let's say dollars equals 0. Now, a bank account, I create a new bank account, and apparently, of course, at launch, it doesn't have any money in it. And let's see, what can we do with it? We can add money to it, right? We could do account.dollars and let's say equals 100. And now you see my account details is I have $100 in my bank account, which is great. It's a great start. And you can do account.dollars equals 50. Maybe I took out like $50, and now dollars is 50. This is great. Now let's see how this works. Now if I want to have, so let's say I started with $100, and then I took out $50, and now I have $50 left in my account. What if I want to take out another $100? I think it would be count dollars minus 50, right? And right now I'm able to do this. A bank account cannot really go below 0, though. That's a big issue. A bank account should never go below 0, because that means the bank is actually loaning out money to you, and that doesn't sound right. Probably the bank would go bankrupt if I did this. I don't even know how many zeros there are there. I just typed them out randomly. It's like 500 million. Yeah, now I took out $500 million from my account. So as a programmer, you shouldn't be allowing this. Like, this is not good practice. This is not how your classes should look like. This is not how you should be programming your classes. Nobody should be able to change the dollar amount to minus 500 million. That's bonkers. That just doesn't make any sense, right? So how can we protect our bank account class from manipulation like this? Basically, I want to make sure that this cannot go below a certain threshold, right? Now, this is where information hiding comes into practice. The actual amount of money in an account is unfortunately none of your business. It's at the bank's discretion. You might want to learn just how much money there is, but you can just do that. So the actual dollar amount, there might be money in your account or not, regardless of how much your balance shows you, basically. Because maybe the bank is reinvesting that money somewhere else. So you shouldn't be able to manipulate the dollar amount directly. What you should be able to do is to kindly ask the bank account class to change the setting for you. So let's not get ahead of ourselves. I'm gonna just make sure the dollars cannot go below 0, because this is a normal bank account, which means we don't actually allow, what do you call it? It's not overhead. Overdraft. Thank you. We don't usually allow overdraft. There might be other account types where we have overdrafts, and you can go up to, I don't know, like minus 2,000 or something. But this is a regular bank account, so it shouldn't go below 0. So what happens here in this case is, as I told you before, you need to hide this information of how much money there actually is in the bank account. There is a word called, or a phrase called, source of truth. Now, if this dollar property is public, and by the way, I didn't show you, but this is basically equal to this. This line, dollars equals 0, is equal to constructor this dollars equals 0. This is exactly the same. So this is the old syntax, and now JavaScript has this class field syntax, which makes it a little bit easier to write static properties. Not static, but fixed properties like dollars equals 0. Dollars will always equal to 0 at constructor. Now, you need to control access, and you have to make sure that nobody is able to manipulate the dollar amount on their own. All right? It doesn't make any sense at all. Nobody should be able to manipulate the dollar amount directly. So what you do is you add a getter. So let's rename this to something like dollars underscore. Bear with me for a second. And you say, if you want to fetch dollars, sure, we're going to give you dollars. All right. And now you can actually log dollars, but you cannot manipulate it, because I have prevented you from setting the dollars. But of course, that wouldn't be very useful. If you want to set dollars to a certain amount, usually what happens is we do this dot dollars equals new amount. Usually you do this. And now, when we log account.dollars, we still see it's minus 500 million. And basically this is equal to removing these getters and setters. We're not doing anything right now. This is object-oriented programming is often mistaken for getters and setters. Don't use getters and setters if you don't need them. If this is all you're gonna do, you don't need getters and setters. But here we want to actually implement a check. If the new amount is smaller than 0, then we should throw an error. Throw an error. Balance cannot go below 0. And now, when we try to run this, we have an error. Balance cannot go below 0. So I'm not able to freely manipulate the dollar amount. Let's see. If I do minus 500, still error. Doesn't work. There you go. Balance cannot go below 0. If I do minus 50, no, doesn't work. If I do 0, it does work. If I do 10, does work. If I do minus 1, doesn't work. How about minus 0, 0, 1? So just 1 cent. Please give me 1 cent. No. There's no, the bank is very stern. They're like, no, balance cannot go below 0. So this is great. This is the first rule of information hiding. You control your information. The bank account class protects this property. You cannot directly manipulate account dollars like this. So if you want to do, again, minus 500, you can't. Balance cannot go below 0. That's great. What if I do this? Account dot dollars underscore. Okay. Now I changed account dot dollars underscore. And now if you read the value of dollars, it's minus 500. And I went around that error. Now this is not a good idea. I shouldn't be able to manipulate dollars underscore. Usually it is kind of a convention in teams in the JavaScript community to say, you know, don't touch any properties with an underscore in the name. If it's dollar underscore or underscore dollars, just don't touch those variables. It could be either at the end or at the beginning like this. It could also be it could also be this, underscore dollars. And this is like, don't do it. Don't manipulate underscore properties. But that's not really, that's not real protection. And what happens if someone sneaks in code that does this? That's not a good idea. To battle that, you have to have true private variables. And fortunately, the new JavaScript syntax allows us to do that. What we do is we declare that variable as a private variable. And now, see, when you want to set it, private field dollars, well, must be declared in an enclosing class. The error message isn't really helpful here. But you cannot change the value of a private property. You can only access that private property through the public property, which is dollars. All right? And now you cannot do, balance cannot go below 0, but you can do, yeah, account details 10, whatever, million, 1,000. What's the million? I have dyslexia in counting numbers. I cannot count them. It's 10 million. All right, and account dollars minus 20 doesn't work. Balance cannot go below 0. So this is the first rule. Now, whatever I try as a developer in your teams, I'm unable to change the dollars. I'm unable to set them below 0 by using private variables, private class fields, okay? Yeah, there is. Now, you have a public interface to it, account.dollars, so that I can read them and I can set them, but I cannot set it below 0, right? Now, let's move forward a little bit with this bank account. Do you think this API is natural? Do you think this is how I code, how I expect to operate in real life? Do I directly manipulate the dollars in my bank account? when, I mean, probably most of you have bank accounts. Do you ever do like, my bank account balance, my bank balance should be $100 right now, or my bank balance should be $50 right now? No. What you do is you either put in money or take out money. So this is either an addition or a subtraction. So I think asking people to use it like this makes a little bit more sense, right? Now, and not directly manipulating it. So now this is the difference. This is the money that you have at hand. Plus means you are putting the money into your bank account, and minus means you're taking out 50. You can take out 90 and we would end up with 0. And if you want to take out 101, we run into this error again. Balance cannot go below 0. So you're not able to take out $101. All right. This looks better. This reads a little bit better. Like, these are not the exact dollar amounts. These are the difference that I need. So I put in $100 and then I took out $40, and now I have $60 left. All right, great. Now we have a compliance department, and they come and tell us that we should be logging these transactions. Whenever someone changes the balance, we should be changing, we should be tracking those transactions, like whether you're putting in money or taking out money, we should be tracking those and the exact amount that is currently left. This is also going to be useful when we display these in the front end. When we have a online banking application and the user logs in, and they want to see their transaction history. And we look at our class and we're like, yeah, sure, I think we could do that. Let's see. Let's first, almost like test-driven development, let's first see how we would like to do that. Account balance, and then transaction history should be account.transactions. Currently it's undefined. And when you create a new bank account, the transaction array should be empty. So what you do is transactions equals an empty array. And now, all right, it's perfect. Transaction history is an empty array. I didn't do anything. And now I look at this class and I say, okay, they want me to track all the changes to dollars. So I'm going to log them in the dollars setter. Why not? What I'm going to do is I'm going to push this transactions, push new amount. So if I do this, now you see our account balance was 100, and then it's now 60. And account balance is 60. If we have more operations here, let's add, 30. Let's add another 120, and let's withdraw 90, something like this. And now you see we had $100, then $60, $90, 210, and finally our account balance sits at $120. All right, this is great. Now, a rule of great object-oriented design is that your code, your modules should be open for extension but closed more for modification. And this more or less also applies to your interface, and which means I, as a user of this dollars API, shouldn't care about tracking your transactions. I shouldn't change my code just because you have new transaction tracking feature. And we were able to support that idea with this implementation. You still do dollars plus equals, dollars minus equals, and we record the transactions behind the curtains. So if you have, these operations here, you don't know the transactions are being manipulated in the background when you change the dollar amount. It looks to you as if you're just changing the dollar amount, but in the background we are actually keeping a track of those transactions. This is very useful. But now see what I can do here. I can say account.transactions equals a new array, right? And see, bam, I clear transaction history. This is very similar to the previous problem. This shouldn't happen. We shouldn't let this happen. Nobody should be able to manipulate transaction history. It is an internal property and you shouldn't be able to manipulate it from outside, but you should be able to log it. So let's do a similar approach here. Let's make this private, and then let's also make this private, and also have get transactions return this transactions, right? And there's no setters. So when I save this file, you see, even if I try to change transaction history, I cannot manipulate it anymore, which is great. I can only get it. This line has no effect. Even if it is there, nothing happens when I try to set it, because this class has no setter. For the bank account class has no setter for transactions, which is amazing. This is mostly what I want, right? But see this. What happens if I want to reset the transactions array, right? What happens if I do transactions.length equals 0? I save the file and I'm able to overwrite the transaction history again. This sucks. I'm able to change transactions again. Even though I don't have a setter for it, I can still manipulate the transactions array. I can push something like this to the array, and you would see hacked. This isn't nice. This really isn't what I'm looking for. This isn't nice. There should be another solution for this, right? So it turns out the reason for why I'm able to push hacked to this is because this get transactions is actually returning the actual array, the private array here. This is returning the reference of the private array, which means anybody can manipulate that array. Transactions.push works on the original transactions array, which gives me an idea. Whenever somebody wants a list of transactions, I should not return the actual array. Why do I return the actual array? What I can do is I can return a copy of the transactions array. So let me create a copy of this here. Hello, Yusuf. Hi. And now you see when I save it, you cannot push anything to my transaction history anymore. Now it's read only. All right. Now transactions is read only. Even if you do transactions.length equals 0, it's still not manipulated, which is great, which is exactly what I want. Any questions so far? How's it going? Are you enjoying the class? We are talking about information hiding, and dollars and transactions are two properties that you shouldn't be messing with in this class, and we're properly hiding that information from you. We're controlling your access to that information. Basically, you are not able to set dollars below 0, and you're not able to change the transaction history at all. Now, one more thing. Let's introduce overdraft functionality. All right. By default, all bank accounts should have. Okay, question is, wouldn't it be a good idea if we throw an exception in transaction setter? Maybe, but why should I care? Nobody should be using it for setting any properties in transactions. I don't have such an API. So I'm all for minimal surprises, and an error in that case is it seems like overthinking and over designing this application. You're just simply not able to change anything on transactions array. However you try. Don't try. Look at my documentation. I don't support that. Now, by default, our bank introduces overdraft. And by default, it's, let's be benevolent here. It's $100 for every account. So your account should be able to go below 0 up to -100. Let's see. Now I can take out like $190. If I do 200, I still have $10 left. 210, I have 0. 220, it doesn't work right now because it says the balance cannot go below 0. Now I need to implement this overdraft functionality, right? And again, the API shouldn't change. How you use the bank account class shouldn't change. So what I do is here, if the new amount is smaller than my overdraft, then I throw an error and say balance cannot go below minus this overdraft. Okay. Now we say balance cannot go below -100. This is interesting though. Something is wrong here. I think this should be minus overdraft. Yes. Now we can take out 200, and of course we cannot take out this. We can take out 220. We can take out 230. 290 minus $80. 300 minus 90. 310 minus 100. And I cannot do this. Balance cannot go below 100. Perfect. Now, without changing the public API, the dollars and transactions, I was able to change my behavior, and I was able to add the overdraft functionality to this bank account, right? This is great, but now our bank is going public, and they will open a branch in another country in Europe. And our product managers come to us and say, it's great that we work with dollars, but we're gonna work with euros from now on, additionally. So you should be able to support euros as well. Now this API doesn't seem very attractive because it's account.dollars, which is, you know, a little painful because I have cornered myself by writing dollars. So I think I need to change it to be more generic. Let's change it to balance so that I can use it for other currencies and it still makes sense. It's not dollars, it's an account balance, right? Now this makes a little bit more sense. That's great. Let's have a look at it. We have a balance that was 0 initially, an overdraft amount of $100, and an empty transactions array. We can read the balance, we can read the transactions, and we can set the balance. New balance, this has to be controlled by the overdraft. So the balance cannot go below minus overdraft. Balance cannot go below minus 100. So you cannot do this. Balance cannot go below minus 100. This is great and very simple. But we're talking about object-oriented programming. And remember the first lecture. We said object-oriented programming should be natural. You should be able to easily understand and easily interact with the objects. So what we do here is we're modifying the balance ourselves, right? We are modifying the balance. Is it natural? If you remember the first lecture, I told you to think naturally. Is this natural? We're modifying the balance manually. And then there are a bunch of stuff happening in the background, like transactions and stuff, right?
Okay.
Does this work? Is it a good idea to have this? You're manipulating the balance and then there are other stuff happening in the background. Is it what you would expect? Is it what happens in real life anyway? Do you think you ever have access to your balance, to your account balance, and you are manipulating it directly? Since the beginning of the class of this lecture, I'm trying very hard to avoid the use of two important words. And one is deposit and the other is withdraw. So what happens in a bank account is you deposit money to a bank account and you withdraw certain amounts from your bank account. It's not like you change your balance all the time manually. It's not like you are resetting the balance every single time. You are depositing money and you are withdrawing money from your bank account. So what happens is the action and the interaction between you as a user and the bank account is depositing money and withdrawing money. It's not like manipulating the balance. When you talk about a bank account in real life, you can never manipulate the balance. Like you go to a branch and ask the clerk to let you reset the balance. That's not how the conversation goes. You say, I would like to deposit this amount to my bank account. Or you say, I would like to withdraw this amount from my bank account, right? Those are the key interactions that you are doing with your bank account. Therefore, this should be reflected in your API. This should be reflected in your bank account API. And deposit and withdraw should be the only actions that you should be using. You shouldn't be setting or resetting the balance. So let's kind of implement that here. Instead of set balance, I'm introducing two new functions, deposit and withdraw. It is a little bit more convoluted. It's not as straightforward as setting the balance. I know now. Previously, you could do the same operation. You could use the same operation like changing balance for adding money and removing money. And this is a little bit more tedious because now this is gonna look like this will be, let's do it like this. This will be account.deposit, and this should be account.withdraw. This is how the API should look like. Obviously, it's not going to work right now because we don't have these functions. But deposit $100, withdraw 40, deposit 30, withdraw 120, withdraw 310. So now let's write those. Deposit. We want to add money. We want to deposit a certain amount. And here we should do this dot balance. I'm gonna do it in a very similar fashion to what we did before. This dot balance plus equals amount. And now we're able to deposit money. Let's add withdraw amount. This dot balance minus equals amount. And there you go. Now we're able to deposit and withdraw money. If I withdraw 110, I have $100. If I withdraw 150, I have $60. If I withdraw 200, I have $10. If I withdraw 210, I have 0. And I'm able to withdraw another 100, but I'm not able to withdraw another $1. Okay, now this works great, but again, I'm able to do account.balance equals 0. And this is not a good idea. It's not a good idea to be able to manipulate account balance directly. I still cannot go below 100. The check is there, but I shouldn't be able to publicly manipulate account balance anymore. I can get it, but I should not be able to set it. So set balance should not be there. A very easy way of doing this is to remove this functionality and move it to deposit or withdraw. It would be very easy. And another person could come and say, can we have a setter for this private balance? But unfortunately, that's not supported. So if we were able to do this, that would be much better, but we cannot do that. So we want to remove the balance setter here. What we want to do is we want to have this functionality in both deposit and withdraw. Let's say this balance. And you shouldn't be able to withdraw this balance minus amount. Yeah, you shouldn't be able to withdraw more than your overdraft. Of course, this is not this dot balance. These are now this dot balance. Yeah, now we have our account balance. We withdraw 100. Sorry, we're not right now at minus 100. If we withdraw like 20, we're going to be minus 20. if we deposit like this, you see we're at 170, so on and so forth. This works. If we want to withdraw 200, we cannot do that. Perfect. Can we set account balance to 9,000? We cannot do that because account balance has no setter right now. It only has a getter. This is great. I'm perfectly hiding information right now. And when you deposit money, I changed the balance and I pushed it to my transactions array. This is great. Is it, though? Are there any issues with this code? There are. There are a couple of issues with this code. What happens if I do this? Let's clean this up a little bit. Let's say I have $100. What if I do this? Or this, sorry, or this? Deposit minus 1,000? This is suspicious. It works. And it works around my check. This is not good. I don't really like this at all. Not a great idea. Not a great idea. Yeah. Not a great idea. So how can we work around this? The balance, I'm doing plus equals amount here, but some hacker just gives minus 1,000 to deposit and manipulates my account balance. How can I get around this? What would be a great way to get around this? It's a question for you. All right, anyone? We're gonna be wrapping up soon. Bank wins always. Yes, we're gonna be wrapping up soon. So I need your involvement here. What would be a great way to do this? Private setter or amount check within deposit method. You can check it on methods. Yeah, on deposit and withdraw, right? I could check whether the amount actually makes sense. Okay. So you say I can add this check, right? If amount is smaller than 0, throw new error, amount, of course, this amount can't be lower than 0, can't be smaller than 0. So we do this, and now we are able to fix this. And for withdraw, the balance cannot go below 1,000. It's great, but I can still manipulate withdraw. And here we can copy the same check to withdraw. Amount cannot be smaller than 0, right? Now, is this a good idea? The code looks a little bit ugly. Bank account, balance, deposit, amount, there's repetitions, and so on. I'm not convinced of this. I'm not really convinced of this. Sure, you cannot have minus in deposit, which makes sense. This is weird. So you should at least have 0, or amount has to be positive. It has to be a positive number, let's say. So you also cannot do, sorry, not for withdraw. It should be in deposit. Maybe here as well. So amount has to be a positive number. You cannot deposit 0. You have to deposit 10. You can make sure that our transaction method is always going to receive positive numbers. Yeah. That's what I'm doing here. But it's a lot of code duplication. Deposit 10. You can deposit 1, you can deposit 0.001, but it has to be positive. You cannot deposit 0. Amount has to be a positive number. This is great, but it is leading to code duplication. And this now forces my hand to be very careful about how I manipulate balance. I made sure you cannot change balance from outside. That is great. But you can change balance from the inside, from inside this class. And that's also not good. What if 10 different developers are working on this project? And what if they kind of forget this check? That amount has to be a positive number. This is a real concern. Now, wherever you have this balance manipulation, you have to carry transactions with you, and you have to carry amount with you. That's not a good idea. That's not a good idea. And the amount check that it's a positive number. So I'm gonna actually roll back my changes here. I didn't like this, and I'm gonna try another thing. So if you remember in the good old days, what we had was we had a set balance, right? And we had all the checks there. And remember, our deposit and withdraw functions were very naive. All they did was to manipulate the balance. So what if I do, and I cannot have a, apparently I cannot have a setter for a private variable. What if I have a oh wow. What if I had a private method for setting a balance? This is interesting. This doesn't work. I cannot have a private method. This is not good. Unexpected token. Set balance is not working. We could make sure that our transaction method is always going to receive positive numbers. Oh yeah. Interesting. I cannot have private methods. Now, this is probably due to Node.js implementation. Private methods are also, of course, supported. And what you should do is, instead of manipulating your balance, there's no setter for balance anymore, you do this dot set balance. Okay. This dot sets balance. But of course, it's not really supported here. What about defining a private sets balance? This balance, yeah. Now, since we can't do that, let's try something like this. Set balance is an anonymous function. How about this? Nice. And we do this. There you go. Set balance. Somehow private methods are not supported, so I made it a private anonymous function. This is equal to this set balance equals this function. So you define set balance as an anonymous function, a function expression, and then you're able to use this dot set balance. And you cannot use set balance from outside, which is great. And you cannot change the balance from outside, which is also great because balance has no setters. And here we can use the private variables from now on. Great. So balance manipulation is done by this method. There is no balance setter. You cannot set the balance from outside. You cannot do account dot balance equals this. It doesn't work. Nobody cares. What you have instead is a private set balance method, and you cannot do account dot set balance. That also doesn't work, which is great. And now you have encapsulated the balance setting functionality in a private function. So now all you need to check is if set balance works correctly or not. And what about our original concern of depositing minus $100? We can still do that. So now let's also fix this. Deposit minus 100 should not work. And here, how can we do that? I think if I just add it here, if amount smaller or equal to 0, throw new error. Amount can't be smaller than, no, we said amount must be a positive number, right? And now you see amount must be a positive number. And this becomes a business concern of the deposit functionality. And this check is only here. And it's not related to setting the balance at all, which is good. This is business functionality of the deposit functionality, deposit method, and it's implemented inside the deposit method. So you cannot do minus 100. You can do 100. That's great. You cannot do 0. You can do 0.001. It works. So we have this check here. The same could be true for withdraw as well. So you also prevent withdrawing -100. And setting the balance is a different concern now. And all the business functionality that has to happen when you're setting a balance should be implemented in this set balance function. All right. Okay. We're again, of course, a little bit over time. We run into unexpected issues, but this is basically all I want to talk about today. This concludes Object-Oriented Programming Part 2 in JavaScript, where we introduce private class fields and where we introduce a little bit of control so that people cannot abuse our properties. We have information hiding. We protect our balance. We protect our overdrafts. Nobody can change it. We protect our transactions. Nobody can manipulate them. Only we can manipulate them. There is no setters for transactions. There is no setters for balance. It's perfect. And we also encapsulated the functionality of setting the balance, and we made sure that the overdraft functionality is there, the transaction handling is there, and so on and so forth. So from now on, only by changing this method, the contents of this method, you can, trace, log the changes. You can do fraud detection. You can say, well, maybe we don't allow this much money transfer in a single day. There are certain limits that you can transfer. You can do anything you want, only in this set balance method, which is pretty good. Because setting the balance is what defines the core functionality of the account. It's not depositing money or withdrawing money. These are delegating the control, the flow of the application to the set balance to finish the execution, to finish the tasks. So you can implement further functionality within set balance. Of course, at a certain point, this set balance won't make much sense. And you would need probably another class even to organize the work here, or maybe multiple classes to organize the work here. But I leave it as an exercise to you. Maybe we're going to do later down the series. We might do another Object-Oriented Programming Part 3, 4, 5, 6. I think we could do up to like 20, 30 different lectures. But I try to keep them as simple as possible. This is very simply an addition to the original object-oriented class that we did, where we introduced object relationships. And now we're talking about information hiding, because don't forget, information is power. You don't want to share it. Knowledge is power. You don't want to share it. What you want to do is you want to have control over it, over who gets that information and how they use that information. All right, having said that, let's conclude our class here. Thank you very much for being with me today, for going through this class. This was super helpful for me to see how we can implement private fields and information hiding in JavaScript. I hope you found it useful as well. I hope you found it helpful as well. And I hope to see you next week. I think we're going to talk about Git next week. So we're going to talk about the basics of Git. We're going to talk about an understanding of Git and how you should be using Git, what the Git workflow is, and a good flavor of Git workflow that makes your life a lot easier. So I hope to see you next week on the same day, on Thursday at the same time, 6 p.m. Berlin time. And until then, have a nice evening. I hope to see you all soon. Bye-bye.